Hi everyone, thank you for staying this afternoon with us. We'll discuss now a very cool topic, which is everything linked to the creators economy. How can you build your venture in that field? You know, how you can create an engaged community and how can you turn it into a profitable business. So I think it will be great. We have three amazing founders with us, all being part of Hub 71 community. And I will let them introduce themselves. Please, Ismail.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me. My name is Ismail. I'm one of the co-founders at LiveLink. We're building an automatic video editor. So the ability to take thousands of unedited clips and at the click of a button, turning them into marketing videos, TV shows, movies, or fully edited clips for your social media.
Thank you.
My name is Arthur Bezdikian. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of Lemonade Fashion. We built a platform that's for the creator economy so that they can monetize their content, but not because it has entertainment value, but because it has economical value. So we built a platform that's a lot like TikTok, where they can scroll through video, create content, buy product, but also sell products from any type of brand or industry that they're using, and they participate in the revenue share from that one.
Sharif?
Hi everyone, I'm Shraf, and at Dharma we basically work with influencers, famous athletes, TV shows, and basically turn their IP or their community into bookable travel experiences. So, you know, think your favorite yoga teacher organizing a yoga retreat all the way through to what does the official experience for Emily in Paris look like. So we enable non-travel professionals to basically monetize their IP and community through travel experiences.
So let's start with Dharma. How can you ensure that, in fact, the platform growth is sync with the community needs and value? How can you do the link between both? Especially that, if I understood well, your communities are not all based in the GCC, but you have really reaching out to global communities.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think a real tension point in the business model, in the sense of how can you scale authenticity. And I think, you know, our core conviction as a business is that the future of travel is passion based and passion led as opposed to geography based. So if in the past 50 years you travel to go to Costa Rica or you travel to go to Indonesia or wherever it is, the next 50 years you'll travel to, you know, summit the highest peak in North Africa, or you'll travel to learn how to surf, etc. And I think that requires authenticity. And the question becomes, can authenticity scale? I think some industries where authenticity has scaled and where it's kept desirability are the luxury space. And so I think for us, one of our big benchmarks is, okay, well, how do we become an experiential luxury play? And I think one of the ways that we think about it is that if you have a yoga teacher hosting a trip, so your favorite yoga teacher, which I think is something that everyone can visualize, you have a natural physical constraint there because the yoga teacher has to be physically there. But when you're thinking about, let's use the Emily in Paris experience, you know, we have 8 exclusive experiences that are built around the show. Well, there you don't have a host. And so the kind of global IP that we can merchandise and reimagine into experiences, there we've removed the constraint of the host, and that scales. And so I think we're thinking about it in that direction.
So you were discussing about authenticity. I would like to know, Arthur, how do you do to maintain the authenticity, you know, when you are dealing with so many fast changing trends in the creator economy?
So I think when we started in the beginning, we used to work a lot on creating the content ourselves, or even making sure that a certain type of content is being only posted and then remove the rest. But we felt that the moment we started doing that, it removed a big part of the authenticity. So a big part of the platform today is actually giving space for the creators to express themselves the way they want to. A big part of the reason why I think current social media is not doing really well is because of the algorithms. And algorithms today on social media, they're created to either promote or even to limit your reach based on what the intention of these platforms are. So a big part of what we're trying to understand at the moment with our creators and with our platform is, okay, what does the next generation want? Because the numbers are saying that the Gen Z believe that social media today is more harmful than it is beneficial. At the same time, they all want to be there because they believe that they can build a career out of it. But they don't have a place for them yet. And a big part of our job is creating a platform for the next generation where they can express themselves, they can build healthy habits, they don't need to be addicted to the platform and where they can monetize and build a career and the future.
Thank you. So you're mentioning algorithm. Can you explain us, Ismail, how do you leverage and use AI to be able to support the creator ability to scale while at the same time remaining authentic?
Sure. So I think it's an interesting question around the challenges of being a creator. So I don't know if anybody's been through, probably during COVID, attempt to get into the world of becoming a creator because everyone was doing it online. And what you realize very quickly is that it's actually very time consuming. And the larger creators have teams to support them. But when you get up and running, the infrastructure required to do it consistently, week in, week out, can be quite difficult. And I think for the first time, there's almost a world now where you have entire team equivalents around individuals that are completely automated. So in our case, for example, there are creators that were initially just on YouTube that would have loved to have expanded onto TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and all these other platforms, but it's time constraints. And now it is very much a process of here's my 1 hour video on YouTube. At the click of a button, I've now got 50 clips that I can then schedule and produce across all of these other platforms simultaneously. And this is available not just to the creators that have millions of followers and are generating tons of revenue, but it's actually available from day one. So I think what I expect to see more and more as not just LiveLink, but other AI video tools come about, you're going to start to actually see a massive increase, I think, in the amount of content being made. And I imagine this will then extend into platforms like yours, where creators will be more and more willing to see, okay, well, I've got the time and capacity now to venture out into new platforms that before I just wasn't able to do.
Thank you. Sharaf, can you share with us, and especially with the audience, what is your current growth stage? And also, how are you able to maintain, personal touch and also your community connection while you are growing and scaling globally?
Yes, of course. We're going into our Series A.
If there is any investors.
We've raised about $11 million to date. Our last round was mostly US-based funds, which was also quite an interesting journey for us, because when we started, it was mostly actually Hub 71 ecosystem, so Shuruk, BYVP that backed us, and then slowly kind of starting to grow out of that. And the last round was mostly US-based funds. So that's been an interesting journey. And then in terms of how we're thinking about growth and retaining the customer connection, I think one of the big conversations we've had, our first trip ever, I was the one physically putting the yoga mats at 5 a.m., getting ready for that first retreat. And at that time, when we had our first VC conversation, the fund was like, okay, I see where this is going, but how do you become a company that delivers 10,000 yoga retreats a year? And my answer at the time was, we don't. So that's the last thing I want to become. I have no idea how we would even get there. And at that time, it was like, I don't even know how we could be organizing more than one at the same time. And, I think, right now we have 3 trips running across 3 different countries and 2 different continents. And I'm completely hands off on that. So, I think with growth, it's, the process obviously, but also the teams to handle it. And then more and more, the biggest thing with travel, especially experiential travel and luxury travel, is that it's very high touch. And so there's an entire industry of DMCs or destination management companies that actually are white label and you can start to rely on for delivery of the operations. And I think more and more what we realize is, where's our space in this value chain? Where do we have a right to play? And where can we actually scale? And for us, it's really around that, okay, let's license or contract the most inspiring people and brands in the world. Let's build experiences around them. Let's design those experiences. And then let's partner with operators and distributors to deliver and distribute the trips. And I think that is where we scale. That is where we play. And so it's also been quite a process to learn to let go of the operations and to learn to let go of the distribution and just focus where we think we can win big.
So when I was in Hub 71, we spent a lot of time, trying to brainstorm with different startups, making sure that we were doing the first right bet, talking about commercial traction, and potential end user. It would be very interesting if you could share with us out here, how you've been able to, because you started with fashion, mainly, and now you're starting to broadcast different type of creators' products. Can you explain us also your growth and how you've been able to have a larger pool of products to showcase?
Yeah, it's actually funny because we organically went into the space. So Lemonade started originally as a marketplace for emerging designers and brands. We started working with some of the biggest influencers. Our campaigns went viral. Like I remember the one big campaign we did, we got 30 million views within the first 24 hours. But we noticed while we're getting the virality, we're not getting the conversions with it. And that was a big problem because we noticed it's happening throughout the world because social media was not built for e-commerce, especially that you run an ad, let's say on Instagram, and then you're trying to send people to a different website. And that's where 60% of the brands lose their traffic. Then we're like, okay, how do we take control of that? So we decided to start taking the videos that we create for social media and placing it on our own platform and then adding the products to it. And at that point, we had some investors from San Francisco, and they're the ones that called us. They're like, guys, this is going to be the next frontier. This is social commerce, or even now we're calling it more of a social economy. So we transitioned into that, but we were still focused on fashion products. When the creators started coming to our new platform, suddenly we saw that there's a need not just to sell fashion through content, but any asset. So as a creator, I want to be able to go for a jog and be able to tag, for example, my pre-jog coffee, the sneakers that I wore, and maybe even my, the croissant boutique that I go to after the run. And if I can tag all of these assets into my content and monetize my entire experience and my journey, this becomes a platform where I'm monetizing my experiences. So that's where we moved from fashion. Now we're opening up. So we have close to 1,000 brands right now on the platform. Music is a big part of our 2025 plans because even Beatport, which is the world's largest platform for electronic music and DJs, they have 40 million DJs on their platform. So now they're fully integrating with us because even Beatport is looking at the future of, okay, how do artists monetize their content in the future? A big part of that has to do with converting, whether it's converting their own songs or adding merchandise and experiences to their concerts and events. So I think the creator economy is going in a very interesting direction.
Thank you. Ismail, you're editing more than 150 videos. Can you share with us, what is, according to you, the future of video editing for creators?
Sure. So it's the growth has been interesting. So 6 months ago, we were editing around 20,000 videos per month. 12 months ago, it was about 1,000. So it's more than doubling on average every month from what we're seeing. And a big part of that is the sheer demand that exists around automation. I think the way that I think about, I guess, the future, when you look at the journey of any of your favorite creators, when they get big enough, they very quickly realize, oh, there's only one of me. If I go, there's nothing left. And so there's this constant push to try and expand themselves into something bigger. So, you have Mr. Beast launching Feastables and this brand and that brand because, he wants to create an entity or an overarching business, or you see creators releasing books. But I think what you're starting to see with where AI is moving is, for the first time, you can almost duplicate the essence of the creator. I'm sure you've seen versions of either videos that look just like the real thing or audio duplicates that are very similar to the actual person. And I think you're going to start to see more and more of that being used to actually produce content in and of itself, so that although the essence of the creator themselves isn't being duplicated as an individual because their time is limited, through buttons being pressed and a bit of code being written, they can start to expand the content being produced, as if it's just like them. And I think that's what we're going to start to see more and more of.
I have a common question for all of you. So you are still in the early stage of your journey. As all founders, and especially in the creating economy, you are very passionate people. Can you share with the audience, because I assume maybe some people are today in what used to be your shoes a couple of years ago, which is, I have this idea, I want to do it, but how can, I move to the next step and launch my venture and start it? Can you share with the audience what was maybe the most painful, moment in your journey so far, and what was really a game changer? We can start with you, Ismail.
Sure. I think not being overly obsessed with the initial idea is probably one of the most important development periods for me, because I think, you know, sometimes you have these moments where you think of the next big thing and you're like, this is the one that's going to work, and you commit to it. It sounds great. And if for any reason during your experience it doesn't work, you tend to feel like, oh, I guess it's just not going to work completely. And I think this notion of internal pivots, and I'd like to think maybe some of you guys can relate to this, internally things do change a lot, and that's not a bad thing. If anything, it's a very, very good thing, because usually you're changing because of data points that you're receiving. Something is coming your way and you think like, hey, I'll give you an example. In our case, right, we didn't set out to build an automatic video editor. The product that we initially released was a teaching platform for creators. And our thesis was we would automate things for them, make it really easy. That's why they'll use us. So we automated video editing, email marketing, and some community management stuff. But what we started to see was that more and more users were coming to our platform with no intention to teach, but instead they were like, hey, we've got these videos that we've made before. Can we use your platform to edit them instead? And that's what I mean when I see, you know, when I talk about data points. There are insights that come your way that can be business changing. It's just being open enough to receive that, to actually go about building things in the right way. So to kind of summarize, the first idea is great to get you going, but it's not necessarily the idea that you'll end up with. And that's not a bad thing.
Thank you. Arthur?
I think it's very close to what you were saying, because when we're building a consumer tech platform, it's not that easy to find the proper product market fit at scale, right? So what we're building might be interesting for the initial community that we're targeting, and we build it with them. But pivoting for us has been part of the journey. So now we actually talk about micro pivots, because every day is a lesson that we learn based on what the data is showing. And yeah, some of those campaigns that we tried hurt a lot, right? Both emotionally was painful, but also financially. For example, when we did that very big influencer campaign, we also launched a huge TVC campaign at some point, and then you notice that, okay, this didn't work. What can I learn from it? And because it's consumer tech, so it's not like B2B SaaS where I got a client to subscribe, and then I know that this client is going to generate X amount of money every single month for us, because consumers come in and come out, right? So you have to capture their attention every single day. And when you're building a platform for them, it changes a lot. So you have to adapt with what they want on a daily basis. So I think pivoting and growing is a very painful journey, but it's also very rewarding, because once you start finding that product market fit, the positioning that you get is very strong and very powerful. My investors tell us all the time, it's like, you're one step away from really exploding, but you don't know where that step is going to be, and you don't know which one it's going to be. So you just keep on going, keep on learning, keep on listening to the market. And for us, what really started helping is when we were able to start attracting mentors and investors from Facebook, from Google, even from TikTok, that started either investing or joining our advisory board. And then we started building it together. So we learned from their experience, and then they help us navigate so that we can build a product for the future rather than the product of the past, because you can't just rely also on existing data of historically how users are behaving. You need to predict what the next generation is going to do.
Thank you. Sharaf?
I think the most painful moment for me was restructuring. And it's tough at a startup and early stage, because people join you on the basis of being mission driven and really believing in kind of the opportunity ahead. And then when it doesn't pan out, especially as kind of the leader of the business, when you've said kind of, okay, guys, this is what's on the other side of this mountain. This is what we have to do to get to the top of the mountain and to get to the other side. And everyone does what they're asked to do, and everyone comes together, and then ultimately on the other side of the mountain is something else. I think that's pretty painful personally, and then obviously for everyone who joined for those reasons. So people often say, especially early stage startups are high risk, high reward. And I guess everyone who joins a startup is like me and fundamentally an optimist. So your mind doesn't really calculate the high risk part. It's all about the high reward part. But then when the high risk actually pans out, that was painful. That was the most painful, I'd say, of the past 4 years. And then on the breakthrough, what made me originally take the jump was that I was working at Uber at the time in London at their headquarters, and I was like, okay, well, actually, if I organize 2 yoga retreats a month, I can probably make as much as I'm making right now at Uber. So that was my opportunity cost, was 2 yoga retreats. So I went out and signed 2 yoga retreats, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can, the opportunity cost is covered, and that's what gave me the first impetus, is just to cover my whatever I was making at Uber. And then since then, BY coming on board, Hub 71 accepting us, and then the more people kind of believe in the project, the more and see what you see, the less crazy or isolated you feel, and the more responsibility you take on.
We've been talking a lot this morning, about ecosystem building and enabling, about value proposition of Abu Dhabi, and you have all in common, to be part of Hub 71 ecosystem. Can I ask you to summarize in one word what Hub 71 or Abu Dhabi ecosystem means for you? Again, I'm sorry, it was not a prepared question.
So for me, it's access to exclusivity, which means it gives you access to people that usually you cannot reach, but Hub 71 allows you to do that very easy.
I'd say my word is network, especially if you don't have a background in any kind of given startup ecosystem. This gives you access to a global network of startups, and that in and of itself lets you connect to the US, Canada, and other parts of the world quite quickly.
I would say gratitude, because in November 2020, no one in the world was investing in travel. And I asked the Hub 71 team, why did you accept us? And they said, well, we take 10, 20, 30-year views on things, and we believe travel is going to come back. So I'd say gratitude.
So I can't echo more, because in 2019, I have an aerospace background, and I was running the only aerospace-focused accelerator during COVID in Hub 71, and it's been a hard time. But as you were saying, we were like, this will come back. It's just a question of time, so we should not give up. I would like to conclude on one thing, when you were explaining how painful, how challenging has been your journey so far, I would just want to conclude saying, there is an amazing thing with founders of startup, which is a very unique type of personality. As you were saying, at the same time, you need to be crazy enough to give up what you have, to explain to your families that you're moving from certainty, stability to full risk, because you're passionate about something, because you're obsessed about something you want to fix. And on the other side, you need to be humble enough to have the support of the ecosystem, to pivot, to be able to do it again and again and again, and be resilient. And I would like all of us to give a big round of applause for these 3 gentlemen who were brave enough to do it. Thank you.